Hello and welcome to another Brawl video. Today we're playing with Progenitus as our commander in this 5-color deck that's filled to the brim with the various ultimatums voted on by my supporters on Patreon. Progenitus, a 10 mana 10/10 with protection from everything. So Progenitus cannot be damaged, enchanted, blocked or targeted by anything the opponent controls. So there's not too many ways to answer Progenitus once it's on the battlefield. You can still maybe get it with a board wipe that destroys all creatures, or you can maybe get it with an edict effect that makes you sacrifice a creature if it's the only creature in play, but otherwise a 10/10 creature that can close out the game in a couple attacks as the opponent won't be able to block it either. So then taking a look at our deck breakdown, we are playing 50 lands since the curve in this deck does go incredibly high, and we also need to make sure we get the right colors going. So I've got 50 lands, so that's half of the deck. Then the remainder is a lot of ramp cards, as we can see here, lots of 2 and 3 mana ramp cards, and then we've got some more expensive ones that can maybe put multiple lands onto the battlefield. And the reason we don't have any mana elves in this deck is because of the next category, which are all the board wipes. Even though they're a bit of a nombo with Progenitus, we do need to make sure we can keep the board clear so we can get to our powerful late game where we can cast Progenitus in the first place, so then playing mana elves would be a little bit counterproductive with our own sweepers. And then finally we get to the fun section, which include most of the ultimatums and then plenty of other payoff cards for producing a lot of mana, so we can hopefully end the game alongside Progenitus. So now for the deep dive, starting with our ramp, we've got some 2 mana sorceries. Explore lets us play an extra land and draw a card, and then both Into the North and Rampant Growth can fetch a basic. We have a split of snow basics and regular basics just to keep things fair. Then we've got Growth Spiral, similar to Explore at instant speed, and the Planar Genesis is also quite similar. And then I'm only playing the ramp artifacts at 2 mana that can make colored mana, so Arcane Signet, Cold Steel Heart, and Solar Transformer. I'm also trying Mana Flare for the first time. Can be a double-edged sword, since it not only doubles your own mana produced by lands, but also the opponent's, but the theory is that we can make better use of all that extra mana with all our curve toppers, and we're also putting more lands onto the battlefield. Then there's Ancient Cornucopia, which can potentially gain 5 life if we cast Progenitus, plenty of other multicolored spells throughout. Cultivate is also great in a 5-color deck. Spelunking can make it so our lands enter untapped from now on, can also help us ramp, similar to Uro, which can also be escaped to gain more life and draw additional cards. And then we've got some 3 mana ramp artifacts. These are more likely to get taken out by the opponent, but otherwise good mana fixing, as Chromatic Lantern can make it easier to cast our various ultimatums without having to worry about fetching the right lanes. Then there's Skyclave Relic, which can also be kicked to make additional tokens of it. And the Celestus also has a nice activated ability, so we can switch between day and night in case we're maybe looking to top deck something more exciting. And then we've got some 4 mana ramp cards. The Survey can find 2 lands in the top 7 to put in play. Invasion will find 2 basics. Then there's Migration Path, can also be cycled later for 2 mana. Omen Path Journey can eventually put 5 lands onto the battlefield. Vastwood Surge can eventually be kicked to give us additional +1 counters. Binding is a removal spell that on Chapter 2 finds a forest, including our non-basic forests. Mirari's Wake, similar to Mana Flare, doubles our mana, but this one's one-sided, while giving the team a +1/+1. Urban Evolution's a bigger version of Explore, letting us draw 3 and play 1 additional land, and that's often going to be better than taking an extra turn in this type of deck, so I prefer it over the Time Warp effects. And then Averted Mastery we can cast for either 4 mana, in which case it will also ramp the opponent, or 6 mana, in which case we get to put 2 lands in play and 2 in hand. And then Primeval Titan, of course, doesn't need an introduction, and that's often gonna search up our one-off world tree, so we can also fix our colors similar to Chromatic Lantern, even though we don't have any gods to search up with the ability. And then our sweepers start out at 4 mana with Day of Judgment, Wrath of God, Damnation, all the classics. Then a drag to the bottom also looks at our domain, so we have potentially 5 basic land types in play, giving all creatures -6/-6, so at least here Progenitus can still survive it. Then Supreme Verdict, an uncounterable sweeper, and at 5 mana, Cleansing Nova can occasionally destroy artifacts and enchantments as well. Sunfall can exile all creatures, leaving an incubator behind. And then we've got Farewell, which can also be devastating, and we're not playing too much into it since we're mostly just ramping by putting lands into play, so then we can maybe select multiple modes. And a Ruinous Ultimatum, the first of the many ultimatums, can also be a one-sided board wipe, destroying all non-land permanents your opponents control. Then the fun cards start out with Bring to Light, which can maybe search up one of our tutor effects or additional card advantage engines. Make Your Own Luck essentially draws 3 cards, and then we can also put one of those into exile to be plotted, so we can cast it for free on the following turn. Then Bolas, another awesome payoff for any 5-color deck, and of course would be a great commander for this strategy as well, but we're going with Progenitus. Leyline Binding, another payoff for Domain, just a 1-mana removal spell most of the time. And then Itali can also be a nice finisher if we transform it and poison the opponent to death. And then we've got more ultimatums with Cruel Ultimatum, one of the more fun ones, making the opponent sacrifice a creature, discard 3 cards and lose 5, whereas we get to return a creature from our graveyard to hand, draw 3 and gain 5 life. Genesis Ultimatum looks at the top 5, putting any number of permanents from among them onto the battlefield, the rest into our hand. Inspired Ultimatum can deal 5 damage while gaining 5, and drawing 5 cards as well. Emergent Ultimatum gets to tutor up 3 monocolored spells. Opponent gets to choose 1 to put back into our library, and we get to cast the other 2 for free. And that can often go get something like a 1 with a multiverse, letting us play 1 spell for free each turn, as well as looking at the top card of our library and casting spells and playing lands. And then, of course, Omniscience, casting all our spells from our hand for free. Does not include Progenitus out of the command zone, but usually still powerful enough. And then we also have Chromatic Orrery, which can also be a ramp card, making 5 mana, but can also draw additional cards, especially with Progenitus in play, we get to draw 5. And then Atraxa, another awesome card to ramp into, stabilizing the board while drawing us extra cards. And then we've got Zakama, which is another awesome mana sink, as we get to cast it, untapping all our lands, and then we can activate the various abilities, dealing damage to creatures, destroying artifacts or enchantments, or gaining life. Also quite powerful alongside cards like Mana Flare or Mirari's Wake, which double the mana produced by our lands, so we can really go to town. Could also include Door to Nothingness as a powerful win condition, I did leave that one out, and Leyline of Mutation, another popular card in the archetype that makes a lot of sense. I also left out as I prefer ramping the old-fashioned way, as there's no mass land destruction in Brawl, so it's usually safer to just put additional lands in play instead. And then the mana base has 50 lands total, 10 of those are tri-lands, which we can fetch with our 10 various fetch lands, 2 of each basic, and then we've got all the shock lands and check lands, since they have good synergy with the triomes as well. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the play, facing Laughing Jasper Flint. Our hand is pretty light on the ramp department, so I don't think I can keep. This is better. Mana Flare could be risky, but might be worth it since we'll have more ways to spend all that mana. A lot of basics, double planes in hand, that's not ideal. So I need to get the remaining colors with my tri-land. So should be able to get the Ziatora's Proving Ground. And we can fetch another tri-land now. So our colors shouldn't be a huge concern anymore. Red-black, not the best at removing enchantments, as we see Vial Smasher. And then I want to get another black or green tri-land. I guess Zagoth is fine. Could also play Cornucopia instead of Mana Flare. If I Mana Flare now, opponent untaps with essentially 6 mana. I'll get to untap with 8. I kinda still like it. Versus Cornucopia into Golos, which is also pretty strong. I'll go for it. First time casting Mana Flare on Arena. Let's see if it backfires. It's going to be a Needlehead for starters. And Jasper. So removing Jasper, not quite as amazing when they have Mana Flare to easily recast it. Primeval Titan, that's a card. So I can go Cornucopia into Primeval Titan. Sounds good. gain a life. And definitely want to get our World Tree and second lands, a little bit less important, but maybe another Triome. Opponent found Mirari's Wake and Chromatic Orrery. They could play either one. Or I guess both, if they go Orrery into Mirari's Wake. Those are some pretty unfortunate hits. 7 mana for Orrery, which casts the Mirari's Wake. So then they have infinite mana, pretty much. And yeah, Jasper is a good way to spend all that mana, I suppose. But we'll have Golos soon. So opponent's going for Mirari's Wake. So now a land makes 3 mana. And Invasion gets Primeval Titan, ouch. Okay. So we've got some catching up to do here. Invasion also would have been the perfect answer to Progenitus, to be fair. So we're at 5. Take our draw. We're at 4. Okay, so I have... how much mana exactly? 7, so 14, 15 mana. So if I go for Progenitus, I only have enough mana to either play Golos or Binding. I mean, that would be a decent turn. Play Progenitus... Binding, maybe the Needlehead. Although Jasper's still pretty scary here. But if I remove it, it's going to be trivial to replay, especially with Mirari's Wake. If I play Golos, I could also activate it and try my luck there. Maybe that's better. Hope to find a sweeper. And get another land. Well, Zakama's a good one. I'll gain my 3. And then we can just decimate the opponent's board with Zakama. I guess I'll just destroy the Mirari's Wake, which will finish off Jasper. Alright, that's good enough. And then I can still gain some life, perhaps. And keep up the ability. Okay, well, that was a lucky Golos hit. Might want to blow up my own mana flare soon. Although for now I don't mind. Assassin is acceptable. Yeah, if they cannot take out Zakama, it should be game over. Finds a Marauder. So I can still just keep Zakama over Golos, even though Golos is fun and exciting. Zakama just permanently answers Jasper, and now Emergent Ultimatum should be the final nail. And our opponent scoops it up, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Maha. It's Feathers Knight. So, a black control deck, basically. We might struggle to deal with some of their card draw enchantments. This hand's good at dealing with creatures, we've got a little bit of ramp, but overall I think we can do better. Well, this is quite similar. I'll keep this time. Still need to find some of our ramp cards. Start out by fetching a tri-land. And then which colors? Probably something blue. And then we don't have a ton of green. So blue, green, a red maybe. Alright, make your own luck could be exciting. For now, play a tap land. Hoping we can find some 3 mana ramp card. Opponent's got a Predation, so that can disrupt our hand. Those will be effective. Probably takes make your own luck, or maybe a Sunfall. Take Sunfall. Alright, we do have more sweepers in the deck, so I'm not too worried about it. For now, we've got a very passive start. So yeah, I would have liked some green ramp cards or artifacts, which the opponents wouldn't be able to interact with. But I guess they're not doing anything either, so if their hand is all removal spells, we're okay with it. And of course, Maha preys on creature decks, being able to shrink them down and then easily take them out. Opponent's got a Celestus for us. And I'll make my own luck. And I guess it's just a Cold Steel Heart here, not the most exciting. Still a draw 3. So next turn we can Titan, and that'll get us to our Omniscient enchantments. I'm sure they can immediately take out the Titan, but still getting 2 cards out of it is good enough. So yeah, we'll give that a try. So we'll enter with 1 toughness, and then any removal spell can take it out here. I'll definitely get my World Tree, and then the other land, probably a Tri-land, and play Cold Steel Heart. So next turn I should be able to cast one with a Multiverse. Can we cast Omniscience already? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We should be able to. Lounge we can cycle. Possible that I should have left the Tri-land in the deck, since we will be able to cycle them going forward. And yeah, Massacre Worm can deal some damage to us. Do have a Wrath, so not too concerned. But yeah, Maha could also potentially get around the protection from everything on Progenitus if they have Maha into another Massacre Worm-like effect. They're hoping we didn't draw another sweeper here. But I've got bad news. Play Omniscience, play one with a Multiverse, play a free Invasion of Zendikar, and cast my Wrath. Okay, that's pretty good. Cannot play Progenitus for free with Omniscience. Obliterator could be pretty scary too. Ooh, Mirari's Wake. So we've got all the mana we'll ever need, plus we can cast our spells for free. So it's time we cycle this Xander's Lounge. Ooh, Bowmasters to punish us, fair enough. So that will actually trigger now. Since it's the nerfed version that doesn't trigger upon entering. But it tallies pretty good too here. Should I maybe cast Progenitus first? I think with the World Tree we don't have to worry about colors of mana. I do not want to give my opponents a Mana Flare, but I will take out your Obliterator. And then play Progenitus. Could also activate a Tally. Can we do both, perhaps? Not quite. So Tally's probably getting removed. Shieldreds. I guess I'll keep a tally since we can just replay Progenitus pretty easily. And while it's usually not relevant, we did get to shuffle our deck with Progenitus dying, so now there's a Supreme Verdict coming up. So we can maybe make Itali indestructible and then cast a Verdict to poison our opponent to death. That's fine. Okay. So we'll proceed. I guess can cast this first off the top using one with the multiverse, although I can just pay 3 mana for it actually. Cornucopia, I'll pay 3. This we can maybe fetch away, look for something more exciting. Alright, another land on top, so now we can activate. A Verdict for free. I'll decline since I can gain more life when casting Progenitus. But I guess an attack here is just game over since we get to apply 11 poison. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw facing Soul of Windgrace, which is sometimes a land destruction deck, so having ramp could be pretty nice. Yeah, I'll keep this, even though we don't have any payoffs in hand yet. I'm sure we'll be able to find some. And then a board wipe could also slow the opponent down. Although with all the fetch lands, Soul of Windgrace also immediately ramps when it enters, so it makes it pretty easy to redeploy. There's another ramp card. I want to fetch a green tri-land here. Opponent's got fetch lands aplenty. So blue-green, third color, not super relevant. And I'll enter the north, since it's less likely to get removed compared to a Transformer. Opponent cultivates. Now we have to decide if we want to Omen Path or if we want to Survey. Survey has a more immediate impact. Lets us go to 7 mana next turn. But I guess 7 mana doesn't really help compared to just putting 1 land in play. And long-term Journey could be better value. So, sure. And then, do I get a bunch of tri-lands? Maybe a command tower. Could go for the world tree, hoping they don't blow it up. And then, sure, I'll get a bunch of tri-lands, even though I may want to cycle them later. Ooh, Mythweaver is a good one. Double peatlands and farewell. I think I wait for them to play some more stuff out, even though Mythweaver makes that less appealing. I'll still survey and then play Transformer. And then farewell could also clean up the graveyards to make Soul of Windgrace less effective. And Green Warden can also replay their land. Mythweaver still only triggers once, so it doesn't get doubled by the Green Warden. Alright, seems like a good turn to farewell. And then, let's see, 6. Could still Surge, or I could cycle Lounge. Probably want to cycle first, though, since I don't want lands in graveyard for Soul of Windgrace. Yeah, I guess we'll cycle now. And then can't quite spelunking first. So graveyards and creatures. And then next turn we could maybe look to play Progenitus. Reclamation not looking great anymore. I guess they can still sack the peatland. It's going to be a Tireless Tracker next. And then just sack the clue. And land on top. And a Bolas Citadel coming up. Ooh, that could be scary. Inspired Ultimatum is pretty good. So I can start there, taking care of... I want to say Oracle, since it's a pretty powerful combo with the Bolas Citadel. And then Runus Ultimatum could wipe their board, maybe after they go off with the Citadel. So then for now, I can Spelunking and still Surge. And I'll probably hang on to the Tri-Line to cycle those. Alright, let's see what they can come up with. And their Citadel. That's their first land. No additional land drops left. Finale for 0 just to get rid of it. No Dried Arbors on Arena. Ooh, Azusa, that's scary. With a Citadel, they could still play more lanes off the top. We'll be able to cycle the tower end of turn at least. So that's 2 additional lanes, now a Nissa. But they've already used their extra land. Could I die to a Citadel activation if they have 10 permanents plus an attack? They would still be a little short. Although now Harrow triggers Nissa and Tracker. So it's not impossible that they can present lethal with the Citadel. If not, next turn we can clean up nicely. So I'm fine if they cast Titania, which could also gain them more life. Alright, Soul of Windgrace now. So it doesn't look like they're growing the tracker necessarily. Yeah, they would get very close to lethal right now. There's only 1 land in graveyard. Sack the clue up to 5, sack another clue up to 6. So then I would be at 1. Ooh, Swordtooth. Does that do it with an extra land? And Nissa, they would get to 17 exactly, I think. It's a tap land. I guess that doesn't do it. Because they can only sack 1 clue. Belladros wins at 4 life. That ultimatum could have killed them. But yeah, that doesn't help them right now. Can Soul of Windgrace deal damage? Can gain life. Discards a land. Can they get the lands back with Reclamation? That doesn't help right now. So I don't think we're dead. So that's nice. They will, however, sack their boards in response to the ultimatum. So I will be at 2. At least there's no creature lanes to worry about. Belladros triggers. And then I can first one with a multiverse, and then cast a free ultimatum, perhaps. And land on top I can play. Alright. Activate Citadel. And then I probably just cast Progenitus now. Since that would win the game. Ooh, I just realized our opponent actually would have had lethal had they activated Citadel last turn, because the clue still gets sacrificed, which still grows the Tireless Tracker. So, yeah, that was missed lethal. Well, let's hope we can take advantage of it. Easy interaction to miss. And of course I did still have 3 mana up, so our opponent wasn't 100% sure that the coast was clear. So can our opponent recover Soul of Windgrace, can gain them 3 life, so that can make the difference. And they're gonna go Surveilling. And they can also gain more life with Titania if they can discard a land. Or I guess just sacrifice a peat land. They might be looking at a Reclamation. Ooh, the One Ring. Well, protection for a turn still kind of trumps our protection from everything, sadly. So I'll need to find some more interaction to survive, most likely. Can start with Genesis for 2. Finds the Day of Judgment. Sure. I'll land on top, I'll play. Ooh, Orrery, that's pretty strong. So I can cast it for 0 mana. And then draw 5. Although now Omniscience looks good. So I don't want to tap the Orrery, so I'll probably have to do this manually. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Cast Omniscience. Okay, and then I can still draw with Orrery. I guess never mind, I'll be a little bit short. So I cannot survive if I just pass and stay back with Progenitus, because we're at 2, so an all-out attack would be lethal. So I have to wipe the board. But they could potentially make Soul of Windgrace indestructible, so we'll have to wait and see if they have a land in hand. Alright, moment of truth. Can they save Soul of Windgrace? They can. Ooh, so now we might be in a bit of trouble. Alright, we did get to shuffle our library thanks to Progenitus, and now there's an evolution on top. So I can draw into it by cycling the garden. And drag to the bottom, that gets rid of an indestructible Soul of Windgrace. So we're kind of doing it. Might have been worth it to do earlier. Cleansing Nova does not destroy the One Ring, so I will just drag to the bottom. Deal with Soul of Windgrace. And then Invasion can shuffle away the Cleansing Nova. Lands are untapped thanks to Spelunking, and somehow Cleansing Nova's back on top. Alright, I guess I can still recast Progenitus here, so that works. And play Lantern for free. Alright, so did not end up using the Orrery. Let's see if our opponent can still burn us out. Draw with One Ring. Otherwise, I'm sure they can still gain life with Soul of Windgrace to survive. Although maybe they're going for a different line. And Bristly Bill, that's beatable. They can make it huge, but doesn't stop Progenitus. Dark Ritual. Replay Soul of Windgrace. So if they have 2 lands in hand, they could gain 6, but no, opponent seems to be out. And what a game. The drag to the bottom saved us. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing the new Mitotic Ultimus from Alchemy. So it gets a discount similar to Galta, and then if it dies, splits into the Mitotic Slime, which again splits into more tokens. So exiling it would be the best solution. Yeah, I'll give this a try. So we need to think about which colors to fetch. Need to get a green, a white, and then red could work. Now we'll want to throw black into the mix. Scrap Gorger, good against Uro. So we want black, red, blue perhaps. Could already cast a Binding. I think we hang on to it for their commander. Play Uro, hope to hit some more lands. We did. I guess now I could be convinced to keep a Binding. Although I'm okay with the exile Uro, since we have enough other things going on. Summerwald Sage, that can make a lot of mana. Yeah, I'll probably exile it here. Cultivate's fine. And then I want a second green for Titan, and I guess I can get Swamp in case I do want to cast Damnation next turn. Even though it doesn't help me cast the Inspired Ultimatum, once we cast a Titan, that should take care of our mana issues. Okay, so the game continues. Caryatids. All creatures with 0 power, so not the best synergy with the commander here. But yeah, we'll cast Primeval Titan, and then that sets up our Mirari's Wake into something powerful. And then we definitely want to get to World Tree, and then the other lands shouldn't matter too much. So if I Mirari's Wake, I'll still have 8 mana left, so should be able to cast Inspired Ultimatum afterwards as well. And then we're very close to Progenitus making an entrance. I guess Scrap Gorger can grow up to 3 power now, so that's a 3 mana discount for the Ultimus. And I did use a Binding earlier, so now I don't have the cleanest answer to it. So yeah, they can cast our commander. It's gonna be a Surak and Goreclaw first. Well, that conveniently dies to Inspired Ultimatum. That works. Can still Rampant Growth. And attack. I do want to keep the Triumphs in the deck now, since we might want to end up cycling them. So I'll just get the Shocklands out of the deck. So we're super far ahead of mana. Don't actually have any amazing payoffs left in hand, so we are just counting on Progenitus, but that might be good enough. Also not opposed to getting one more attack in, casting Damnation and then casting Progenitus. Although Damnation may not line up great against the slime. There it is. Yeah, they can pretty easily recast it thanks to the conjured Mitotic Slimes as well. So this commander seems very strong for a mono-green deck, if you're in the market. A lot more resilient than Galta, and still pretty close in power level. Alright, so we don't need to worry about the opponent making their team indestructible. Maybe can start by cycling Proving Ground. Alright, just some lanes. So Titan attacks. And get some more shock lanes. Damage happens. And finally cast Progenitus. Alright, looks like they can make the Ultimus indestructible. Don't actually know if that was a huge advantage for them, but I don't mind. So we are on empty. But this is a 2-turn clock. Protection from everything means they also cannot block it. Ultimate Hydra can grow pretty large. We'll see what land they get. And Nykthos makes sense. 4 devotion, so still manageable. So yeah, would love to draw any of our ultimatums. I can block their commander. They will get a bunch of 4/4s in return. Still the same amount of damage. I guess they can recast it if they don't have anything else in hand. I don't think it matters. And the devotion also stays the same. I guess this is better in case they have like a Crater Hoof, because then they have more creatures in play. I could go fetching a whole bunch before exploring. I don't think that's worth it. My life total does matter. But yeah, it's a land o'clock. So hit you for 11. Hope they can gain life. And then next turn we get to attack for lethal. I also don't have that many fetch lands in play, just a polluted delta that I could have maybe sacrificed first. We're not playing any of those surveil lanes. Ooh, well, there's Crater Hoof. Am I dead? I think I am. Yep. Well, that's too bad. So had I not blocked the Ultimus, of course I would have taken 8 last turn. Are there any gods in my deck? I don't think so. But let's double check. Nope. Alright, GG's. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing the 5-color Shrine deck. So Ruinous Ultimatum and Binding are both excellent. Could use some more lands, but we are playing a high land count, so just gotta hope that we find 1 or 2 to start out, and then these cards can take care of the rest. So already have to think about how to fetch here to make sure we can still cast Ultimatum while having green mana, but that's where the tri-lands come in handy. So green, blue, black perhaps, as we draw another ultimatum with completely different requirements. That's alright. Although did not find a land here, so yeah, we could fall behind, at least into the north, can get there next turn. But we are now playing catch-up. Land is good. Can go for Uro. Although it doesn't guarantee an extra land, so I think I still prefer into the north. And then a red is kind of the color the ultimatums have in common. Satyr Enchanter. They can maybe have for a turn, although we could just binding it. Yeah, that seems fine. As opposed to Survey, which maybe gets us closer to the ultimatums. And then Marsh Flats wants, let's see, black probably. Another blue source, as our opponent uses binding on the binding. So we won't get to ramp next turn. Alright, so we'll survey. And then we've got some exciting ultimatums in hand. Not that much for us to destroy with a ruinous one, but Genesis Ultimatum or Atraxa are both pretty nice here. Alright, opponent does have a couple enchantments now. Kind of like Inspired Ultimatum as well, to just destroy their Life's Origin. Although I could just Genesis Ultimatum. The only problem is they get to activate Life's Origin to get binding back, and then destroy whatever I put in play. So there's a lot to consider. I guess currently we cannot Ruinous Ultimatum anyways. Let's just Inspired. Can hit my land drop for a turn. And then discard maybe a Skyclave Relic at this point. They replay their commander. I don't mind ramping some more with Titan and Uro. And then again wait a turn on Ruinous Ultimatum. So we'll start with Uro, see what we get. And then Titan can get our World Tree to fix our colors. And I may want to leave the Triomes in the deck now, since we would maybe prefer cycling them. Maybe I'll still get one. And then they could make the play I described of returning binding to destroy the Titan. Yep. So now might be a good time for Ruinous Ultimatum. Otherwise they get to keep ramping for free. And I'm pretty sure we can Cornucopia first. Let's see, could even maybe Migration Path. Although the life gain could be nice. And I might end up cycling this anyway. And gain 3. And I guess we can just cast a Migration Path after all. Uro could also be escaped. Might even be better. And then we don't have a ton of Graveyard Recursion. I guess Cruel Ultimatum gets a creature back. Alright. That was a good turn. So it's now 8 mana. Although Conquer's Death exiles Uro. But now the board's maybe a little bit more welcome to a Genesis Ultimatum. And sure, I'll gain 3. Yeah, that's a good one. Might want to hang on to Xander's Lounge to cycle it. And sure, I'll pay 2. Okay, free Atraxa seems good. It's Omniscience, Emergent Ultimatum, and a land. And yeah, that's going to be good enough. Awesome, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Baylen, the Haymaker, so tokens deck. So we just need to make sure we have a sweeper in our opener. This hand's got some nice ramp, but I'll look for a board wipe. And this will do, assuming we have green mana for Cornucopia first. So that might have to wait. But any 4th land and we can still Day of Judgment. Alright, there we go. Can still play tapped Godless Shrine. And then Cornucopia into Survey, then we'll probably wipe the board and clear a path for Golos. And that's if everything goes to plan. Fable's a good one. Still don't think I want to Day of Judgment just for the token. So then make your own luck versus Survey. I guess we could Golos just to have a blocker. Maybe Golos is still the play, even though there's a chance they can remove it. With the extra land, we would also be able to activate it on the following turn. And we present a blocker so they don't get to attack for free. Get our World Tree. And if they do remove Golos, our next play might be make your own luck, hope to hit something expensive. But just drawing 3 is pretty strong here. Fountain Port is making it harder to cast their commander. So it's going to be a Stram's Expertise, plus an Enduring Vitality. Pretty good. We'll stick around post Day of Judgment, and they have Humiliation to destroy Golos. So that was a huge setback. Do I still want a Day of Judgment? Or we can wait for the Reflection of Kiki Jiki to show up. And for now, just make my own luck. I'll gain 2. And a free Atraxa next turn sounds good. Can still play a Signet. Alright. So this turn might hurt, but next turn we should be in the driver's seat. Yeah, Humiliation can be very annoying if it targets your commander without necessarily destroying it. But luckily cannot target Progenitus. And Reese the Redeemed, opponent's just going for it. If they don't have a way to make their team indestructible, they're gonna be pretty sad here. Alright, step 1, Wrath of God. There's a lot of hovering right now, so they might be casting something in response. Court of Calling for 3, fair enough. Anything that protects the team, yeah, I guess King Darien, that's a nice one. So just the tokens are protected. So still a pretty effective board wipe. And then now we'll play Atraxa, I think. But yeah, still a pretty cool play from our opponent as well. I'll gain 4. And Mana Flare is exciting, but could be a double-edged sword here. Probably want the Evolution. Spiral is our instant. I mean, I'll take the Mana Flare, don't know if I'll necessarily cast it. If I play it, I'll still have 4 mana left. Yeah, you know what? Let's go for it. Don't often get the chance. And then I can still survey, putting 2 more lands into play for next turn. So then I can pretty easily cast Progenitus already. So let's see what they can do with double the mana. They already had a lot of mana thanks to the Enduring Vitality, so doesn't seem like a huge drawback here. I guess they could have something like a Moonshaker Cavalry. Don't think that kills me. So for now, Baylen. And secure the wastes for 7. Alright, so probably need to cast another sweeper here after we get an attack in. Inspired Ultimatum could also answer Baylen. So we have quite a few options. But don't really want to let my opponent untap with that many tokens, because I could just die to a Crater Hoof. So they can draw a few cards on the way out. Surprised I didn't try and hit our land drop last turn. And then I'll cast Progenitus, but opponent's going to concede before we get a chance. But yeah, our hand was still pretty stacked. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Purphoros, Bronze-Blooded. So this is the one that can cheat creatures into play and give them haste. So a combo deck can be a bad matchup for us, since they can sort of dodge our sorcery speed sweepers. This hand's got to be a mulligan, since we didn't have any early ramp. This is better, and Leyline Binding, actually one of our few instant speed answers. Although Omniscience and Atraxa are pretty far from getting cast. So I want to get a green tri-land that helps us enable Domain. So it doesn't need to be black, so white, green, and maybe blue. Opponent's got an Ornithopter. And let's look for Spyro's headquarters. And then we can explore. Setting up our survey, and this can fetch another tri-land. We're still missing Mountain on the battlefields. So what do we like? Maybe get a second white source, so white, red, don't need green, maybe blue once again. And then I'll survey. And then we'll still be able to maybe binding Purphoros before they get a chance to activate it. And then put some more tri-lands into play. Alright, so next turn I can cast Atraxa. But might need to deal with Purphoros first. They don't have a ton of cards left in hand, but they might both be some powerful creatures that can win the game by themselves. And Make Your Own Luck was a good draw, so now I can cast it and still binding. And speaking of binding, yeah, I could grab it here. And then I'll need to do this now. Play World Tree, so now our mana's perfect. Okay. They might be trying to hardcast some of their creatures. Nope, still going for Purphoros. But now, let's see, how close are we to Omniscience? Not quite, so it's still Atraxa. And then Binding can take care of one of the mana creatures. Finding Zakama, Golos as our artifact, I imagine. Ruinous Ultimatum and Sunfall, both pretty devastating as well. Purphoros does survive Ultimatum. Might want to go for Sunfall, but yeah, I don't know if it really matters. And a land. And an enchantment. Alright, so nothing else I can do besides binding. Take care of the Ornithopter, I guess. Alright, so let's see if our opponent can cheat something backbreaking into play with Purphoros. Can ditch some lands, maybe the journey's not needed. They potentially get 2 activations. First one's a Goldspan, that's beatable. And the second one Ilharg, which also animates Purphoros. And then does Ilharg have anything to cheat into play? They do. Ooh, Terror of Mount Velas. Yeah, that's one of the best ones, giving the team double strike, so now I could be dead. So that's kind of my worst fear. So no point in blocking the Trampler. Most I can prevent is by blocking Purphoros, is that true? I guess I don't gain any life then. So block the Terror. And then I take 17 in first strike, then I gain 7 and lose another 10, so yeah, I should be dead here. Alright, that's too bad. That's where having some more cheap interaction to find with Atraxa might have helped. But yeah, Terror is kind of the perfect card to put in play with Purphoros, so anything alongside it and it's probably game. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the play, facing Captain Howler, so a blue-red discard deck. Our hand's got potential, assuming we can cast Supreme Verdict. And I guess we can, have double white and blue. That can buy us some time, set up Primeval Titan, keep on ramping. And then before you know it, we can cast Progenitus. So just want to play some of our tapped lands. Turn 2 Signet. Yeah, I can play a tapped Triome. Probably won't be cycling it anytime soon. I'm gonna wait for Captain Howler to Supreme Verdict. So that may be this turn, maybe next turn. Possible our opponent's keeping up counter spells as well. Alright, I guess they're giving me enough to want a Verdict already. Could still wait an extra turn. Yeah, you know what? Might be greedy, but they're sort of incentivized to play it. They don't. And if they're keeping up their own counterspell, they're going to be disappointed. Skyray, so we do still get one extra creature out of it. And then I'm happy if our opponent taps out for their commander and we get to resolve Primeval Titan. Our opponent does get a Fiery Temper on the way out, dealing 3. Alright, so a single mana, unlikely to counter Primeval Titan. And then we should have the mana to Ultimatum. Since we're gonna get our World Tree and another tap land. So we've got perfect mana. Ultimatum draws 5, puts any number of permanents from among them into play. Could also go for Chromatic Orrery. Howler attacks. I'm actually fine if we trade here. Even though it would be nice to keep ramping with the Titan, it's already done enough. 3 steps ahead, draws and discards. Would have been a counter spell, so good to get those out of the way. Yeah, I guess we can Orrery and then still Ultimatum afterwards, if I'm not mistaken. So I'll try that. And Omniscience is good to have in play. And then I can still Emergent Ultimatum afterwards. Finding one with a multiverse, Italy, and the concede button, apparently. Alright, fair enough. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Nicol, Bolas, God-Pharaoh, the ultimate end boss. So counter spells especially are going to be annoying. Discard spells, of course, can also hit us. But this hand seems like it's worth a try. Would prefer not having the curve toppers in my opening hand, since they might get taken away. But we will eventually need them, and these are pretty strong. Sweepers, not at their best in this matchup, but Cornucopia and Binding should both be effective. We are playing a very generous land count, so usually not worried about hitting my land drops. So now if they play their own ramp artifact, we can already consider destroying it. And Dark Ritual, ooh. What is this? The other Nicol Bolas. Well, that's a good target for Binding. And then Sunfall can go.
Throughout the motive, let your weak mind crumble.
Gain 2.
I will wipe your bloodline from existence.
A rampant growth can help us ramp even more. Chapter 2 finds a forest, can be a triome as well. Could use more blue mana. And Gonti. Alright. Our good cards are usually pretty pricey, so it's going to be a while before those are going to matter. Or they could find their own ramp card. So we want a blue tri-lands. Blue, white, green I think is good. And then we can explore first. Decline, since we know we can at the very least rampant growth. And now I'll gain 1. And get, well, a concession, I'll take it. Alright, so we get to see our 5-color Progenitus deck in action. Didn't actually cast Progenitus all that often, usually had better options available, but also by the time we get to 10 mana and can cast Progenitus, if we haven't lost a game yet, we're usually winning in one way or the other, so then Progenitus is kind of superfluous, but still a nice commander to have access to, since it's pretty tricky for a lot of decks to handle. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's gameplay. I want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.